All right, Big Man, today's Tuesday. It's August 30th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Chief, how are you? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I'm doing fine. How are you, Ed?
I'm doing well.
You feeling the heat from surviving Barstool yet?
Yeah. So as of this podcast right now, only episode 1 has aired, so go check it out. It was a great episode. I know you haven't watched
I
yet.
saw the clip, and I wish I could say I was surprised. Where you're bugging offices. Like, I know we're being recorded right now, and that's our job, but now I'm going to be paranoid about every other room I walk into.
Just got to set up some wiretaps once in a while, man.
That's got to be, like, I don't think people know this about you necessarily. We've talked about it. You're a stakeout guy.
Yeah.
So, like you like to just do stakeouts of random people for almost no reason.
Well,
and with no training and no authority.
Sometimes there's reasons.
And now you're also a wiretap guy.
There were suspicions that,
How long until you make a citizen's arrest? Because I would like to be in on that. I think a citizen's arrest sounds awesome.
Oh, I seen an Irish guy hog tie someone once who was stealing stuff out of his building that he was building.
Yeah.
And it was ever since then I was kind of licking my chops,
Yeah.
But I got to get the Boy Scout rope knots.
You're like
ready.
Some kind of bizarro Batman. Like, that's the path that you're on. You start off doing stakeouts. Now you're doing wiretaps. Citizen's arrest is next. Before you know it, you'll be riding around in a Batmobile.
See, here's the issue. This makes me sound like a narc. I used a wiretap because I had to save myself in a game, which I was dead in the water.
Yeah.
Dead in the water, if but go watch the episode.
Yep.
But I was in a very tough spot, so I did what I thought I had to do to save my spot in the game.
Yep.
And then the stakeout was, I thought my friend, we drove past his girlfriend's house at the right time, and we
saw some things you didn't want to see.
Yeah, I just was looking out for my buddy,
Mm-hmm. He asked you to do that?
No.
No.
He did not. But he's one of those guys that's like...
He needed you to do it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Or he would have just waltzed through life with,
He would have found out eventually in a worse way.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. So we're just looking out.
Yep.
What's going? A lot of stuff going on this weekend. It's there's a couple concerts, so you should go check out the Game Time app if you're looking to go to those.
Lumineers at Wrigley, sick. Wish I could go to that, but Notre Dame playing Ohio State same time, tough ticket.
Yeah.
And my parents are going to England, and they're dying to go to a Nottingham game. They don't even have ticket apps over there. They don't have Game Time. It's not allowed.
Oh, really?
We are blessed to be able to go to any event that we want here in America because that Game Time app, you just download it. What's the promo for it?
The promo for that is Dog Walk. Okay, so also there's the Rammstein concert is at Soldier Field.
Okay,
on the 3rd. So go check that out. But yeah, if you want to use the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports, it's Game Time, and it's a ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last-minute deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows, and they guarantee the lowest price. Download the Game Time app, go to the account tab to create a login and redeem code DOGWALK for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Download Game Time, last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Go do it.
The best.
All right, so today's topic.
Today's topic, we're talking about the Opium War. So this is a history one. I feel like we haven't done one of these in a while. So I was just going through a website called On This Day, little history fact day, whatever happened on that day. And today, so we're recording on a Monday, is when the first Opium Wars ended. And do you know what this is about or no? Do you have any background on this?
No, I think we might have vaguely talked about it before.
Okay. That's what we were actually scrambling to see if we had talked about it before.
I know. It's one of those things we're getting that point.
We're in year 4.
We're in year 4.
Yeah.
And we went to see if we talked about it. And sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe we just touched on it. Maybe we talked about it in person. So I don't think we covered this. So.
Okay. So I would think of this, and it might not be the very first, but I would guess that I would call this the first ever war on drugs. Okay. You seen that show? You seen Narcos before?
I have not.
Okay, you've missed like just all the shows. I feel like.
No, I've seen a good amount.
Yeah, I finished Barry this in like a week. By the way,
what'd you think?
Awesome.
Yeah, great show.
Awesome
right?
show.
Do you see why it hurt me not to draft NoHo Hank?
He is a spectacular character.
Legendary.
So funny. So funny. And it's just like and without him, like that show is just completely dark the entire time. You'd be like, holy shit, like this is an intense show.
Yeah.
I didn't realize like he is like so needed to like make that show like
a dark comedy
palatable, because otherwise it's just like, holy fuck.
It's just dark.
Yeah. So great show, great recommendation, flew through it. So this would be like Narcos, okay? But except instead of Pablo Escobar as like the drug kingpin, the drug king queen at this queen pin, okay, would be Queen Victoria of England. Like she was the one running shit in the opium trade. So that was like an entire war between England and China was fought about the ability to sell opium. And really it's kind of just about money, which it always is. Every single thing, every single war that is fought, you know, seemingly for altruistic purposes, all the way back through history, if you just follow the money, you'll end up figuring out what the root cause was. And that's what this one was too. So, you know, this is, at this time, we're in the 1800s. This war happened. The treaty was signed in 1842, which to call it a treaty is, that makes it sound like they just came together and like hash it out. Wrong. England was like, this is what you're doing now that you poked the bear and we fucking smashed you guys.
Strong-armed them?
Yeah. And so that's how England originally got control of Taiwan, or not Taiwan, Hong Kong, was from this war. So it was like so it's like we win, we got to do what we want, and then we're taking Hong Kong for like 150 years. And that was like just part of their, and that's how they did it. So this is, like I said, mid 1800s, 1842. This is like the peak of the British Empire. So if you look, they used to have that expression saying that the sun never sets on the British Empire, which was true, because it would come up in the east. And they had, you know, colonies all over, like, you know, they had Hong Kong, they had all these, you know, little island areas, they had Australia, they had India, they had places in Africa, they had the Middle East, they obviously had their own areas in Europe, they had, I think it was Guyana or Suriname, one of those in South America, they had Canada, they had fucking everything everywhere because their navy was so strong and they just exploited everybody and had so much money. And the way that they did it, it wasn't so like the previous generation when countries started conquering all these places, like conquering North America, for example, the way that they would do it was just sheer brute force. It's like the Spanish came in with the conquistadors, and they would just fucking be like, well, we're murdering all of you and taking all your shit, and we're going to enslave you, and you guys mine the gold and silver, and we'll ship it back, and that's the way it is. So that fell out of favor. That wasn't as palatable by the 1800s. So what they would do is that they would set up trade posts, and then they would start to do things and like take advantage and skirt the laws of the local government. And they would eventually try to like start a small skirmish with like the East India Trading Company in this case, and wait for that local government to attack. And then that would give the British Crown the kind of the cover to be like, we're just defending our people and our businesses who are just trying to do an honest day's work over in China or India or wherever. And they would send their military, because they were the biggest navy, biggest industrial power in the world, and smash everyone and then just conquer the people. But they were doing it at first just to defend people, just to defend their own people and their own businesses. So that's kind of what was going on. So they had the Qing dynasty, and it's Qing. That's how you spell it. I don't know if that's how I'm pronouncing it the right way. But they were in charge of almost all of China the way that you would see today. And they knew the British reputation because they'd seen it just happen in India not too far before, and they'd seen it happen in other places. So they were very careful about how they were going to do business with England, because they could make money trading with England. But if you let them in a little too much, then they come in and subjugate you, and you're fucked. So they were smart about it. So they said, okay, you can come over, because we want to sell you tea, we want to sell you silk, and we want to sell you porcelain, you know, like your tea sets, your china. And England wanted all those things, so they were allowing these trades to happen. Both places were making a good amount of money. The other stipulation that China put on them was like, we're only going to accept silver coins and silver as payment. And because that was like another tool of the British Empire. It's like, we'll pay you in British pounds. Okay, so then they were totally reliant on the British economic system for their own value, and that made it a lot easier for the British to really kind of control their economy, as how much money, they could control these far off places by establishing the value of their own currency back home. So they were like, we're not importing your currency into our system. You have to pay us in silver. And that arrangement was going on for a while, but then it was like the East India Company was like, man, like in the British Empire, the Crown, were like, this is not great. Like we're giving a lot of money to the Qing dynasty in China through this trade agreement by giving them just silver. Like that's making, like, our banks are going down. Like, yes, like we're importing this stuff that we need, that we can sell, but at the end of the day, like our bank is a little emptier than we want. How do we fix this problem? Drugs. So they had conquered India, and they had all these opium production facilities, and they would put it on boats and bring it into China and sell it to Chinese people. And they would require that if you want to buy this opium, which it's an addictive drug, if you want to buy this opium, you have to pay us in silver. So we'll give you silver for tea, silk, and porcelain. Okay, great. Now that silver we just gave to you, we're going to give you opium. Why don't you just give it right back? So it was like, what you ended up with is no money in the country of a physical asset like silver, and everyone addicted to drugs. Like that's what England was importing by design to keep their own money and make people in China easier to deal with because they just had all the money. So China outlawed it. England didn't care. They were just like, yeah, we're still going to import it, sell it. And then they had another law where it was like, you're only allowed to come in through this one Canton. So like they talk about the language Cantonese food. It's this like southwestern city in China. Like that was where all the trade was supposed to happen. Then they started just going to Shanghai and all these different cities all across the country, because it's just like, we're not respecting any of your laws. So China, the Emperor of China, writes a letter to the Queen of England being like, can you please just stop? Like this is becoming a real problem for our population. We're losing all this money, and like it's a problem. Like you're impoverishing our country and getting our whole country addicted to drugs. And the Queen was like, no, like just a straight up like, nah, we're not doing that. So then they responded being like, all right, well then we have to do something about this. And they started attacking these different warehouses and these different businesses and shipping merchants that they knew were bringing in opium to deal across the country. And they would attack these other British merchants. And that gave them what England always wanted, which was an excuse to just go in and smash them. And that's exactly what they did. They smashed them. So they took their boats, and they had, like I said, the power of like the Industrial Revolution and taking off in England. So they had guns. They had, they've been fighting wars for like 1,000 years all over the world at that point. So they're just a way better army. So even though they're on the other side of the fucking planet, they're still able to win that war relatively easily, to the point that China eventually said, we give. So that it lasted a little over 2 years. And out of that came, so now England was like, we're going to dictate policy all over the place. And then France and the United States came in between them, or came in after them. We're like, we want those same trade deals. So England was really in charge. And then they were like, hey, like you also, in addition to us murdering a lot of people in your country and taking over all these different, taking all your money and trade routes and getting everybody addicted to drugs, well, you did burn down those opium warehouses. So that cost money. So you're going to have to pay us like over $10 million in silver, which I don't even know what that would equate to today. Like, I don't know, $1 billion, like a shit ton of money. Yeah. And and they were just like, okay. And then that was part of why they were able to get Hong Kong. And like that war that happened in 1842 is still causing issues in the global, the geopolitics today, because they had this, if you fast forward 50, 100 years, having all these colonies all over the world, we were subjugating all these people, like kind of fell out of favor. So little by little, the British Empire started being like, all right, Australia, like you're on your own. Obviously, everybody kind of knows the story of Gandhi, where that was more contentious, but he eventually let India become its own country. all the places in Africa, Canada, Canada didn't have it as bad as some of these other places, but the whole empire all over the world really kind of shrank over from 1842 till, let's say, 1942, when World War II really it was the meat of that war. They kind of just gave away all their territories, and they have like the British Commonwealth, which is like New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and a few other like island nations like Bermuda, places like that they're still like part of it, but not really. So, and then Hong Kong, because the English turned Hong Kong into like the place in the Far East, because after World War I, China went communist, Vietnam was in civil war, and then eventually they went fully communist too. Korea had their issues. So if you wanted to trade in the Far East, the place to do it was Hong Kong. And they too, as time went on, England or the United Kingdom and China came to an agreement where we're going to give Hong Kong back to you guys in 1997. And everyone in Hong Kong kind of freaked out because it's like, we don't want to be a part of communist China, even though they're so much closer to mainland China than even Taiwan is. So Taiwan, we always hear about like that could be the next flashpoint where we're going to have global conflict break out. But Hong Kong is like, it's like, I don't know, like you could probably swim, it's like that close.
Yeah.
And so Hong Kong, they were like, we can't just flip overnight. You can't just flip into being China, going from being an English colony or an English protectorate city to the Communist Party of China overnight, because you have your own government, your own laws, your own culture, your own currency. So they agreed to have this transition period of, I think it was supposed to be from 1997 until 2047. So like a 50-year gap where they would slowly transition. And then right before COVID, Hong Kong was having wild protests.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because China was really tightening the screws on them. So they started passing these different laws that really were impacted. Like, it's like, you guys are just us now. So they had always been a democracy in Hong Kong. And people like being a democracy. They like having their freedom of speech, which doesn't really exist the way that we think of it in China. So when China comes out and they're like, okay, you can still you can still vote, but we're choosing all the candidates. So that was like a big sticking point. So it's like, yeah. You guys want to have your elections? Great. We love that for you. We'll tell you exactly who to vote for. So you guys have your elections and we have the people in Hong Kong loyal to us. So people didn't like that. Obviously, big time protests. They started rolling back and cracking down on free speech. So if you're speaking out against the CCP in China, you got in big trouble. And they passed, because this is like a flashpoint, like because no one in China is really allowed to speak ill of the government, and they have protests going on all over the place still now because of everything that's going on. There's zero COVID policy and people going back to work and not having enough food. The mortgage crisis, they got a lot of problems. Feels like China's kind of on their own tipping point a little bit, at least the CCP is. And they passed this law about extradition, where it's like, if you're a criminal in Hong Kong, China can extradite you back to mainland China and put you on trial and do whatever they want with you. And that was a real problem, because then it's like they could charge you with anything. They could be like, Red Ed doesn't like what you did on Surviving Barstool, and we're going to bring you back and put you up in trumped up charges and lock you away seemingly forever. So if you wanted to squash any sort of rebellion or any sort of protest, you just snatch these people up, send them back to China, and they're done. So because they had been operating, really, it's one country, but it's like two at the same time. If you wanted to go from China to Hong Kong or vice versa, you need a Hong Kong passport, or you have two different passports, and they will stamp it as if you're going into a foreign country. So even though it's like the same country, it's not. And they still have their own money, they still have their own laws, and China's really trying to accelerate that process where they just don't. Like, you're subjects of the Chinese Communist Party. So that's really what's been going on. That's like the root of these protests. And then COVID happened, and everybody was just locked down anyway. So like everything kind of stopped. in terms of protests in Hong Kong. But these are issues that are just still unresolved today, and we're still dealing with these issues, which you can say is good or bad, because it's like, well, you do have these people who are technically more free in China than they would have normally been had that Opium War not happened. But it's like, it was a war about drugs, and like the Queen and the British Empire just wanted to make a shit ton of money, which they did 100 and something years ago, 180 years ago. And now we're still dealing with like the repercussions. And that's something that I feel like it's like very in vogue to hate America, and has been for a long time, and some of it for good reason. British Empire fucked everything up.
I was going to ask, did they catch heat for that in 97 for just giving it up like that?
No, I think they were kind of praised for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's like, oh, like they're not colonialists anymore. Like this always belonged to China. Like that was kind of the thing.
But like if the people liked the way of life and they were like, hey, we have it better under this.
But this is like a UN thing, you know, like who knows what, you know, like trade deals, because that was really when China was starting to. So China opened up, I think, in 74. So Mao took over in the late 40s after World War. There was a Chinese Civil War, and that's why Taiwan was born as its own thing, because those were like the more westernized, free market capitalist people, and they had to escape and flee to Taiwan, and Mao took over everything else. And they like, I think, who knows, you know, when China opens up in 74, like Nixon goes there and they start having like factories, and it becomes like the global economy. Who knows what England got in return for giving up Taiwan or giving up Hong Kong? Like it could have just been like some other, like, yeah, we'll cut your rate on such and such, and it's backroom deal, and now you guys have Hong Kong back, and they like it because it's a booming city, it's a financial hub of the world, and so if that's back under their control, like that's more money for them, and
more control too.
And England can more control, and England can spin it as like we're giving this piece of thing that we stole from China back to China, but but you're right, it's like it's not like the people chose it was done at like some higher level, you know, UN thing. So it's just wild how everything is linked. And yeah, I don't think England gets nearly the shit, like, you know, we always, like, if you talk about like
isn't that like is there a crazy equivalence if we just like relinquish Puerto Rico and like, yeah, Cuba, you could have them?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Like,
so we that's not even a bad comparison, because when we fought the Spanish-American War, like that's how we got the Philippines and how we got Puerto Rico. And I think we were like, but it was really like they wanted Cuba, and that was largely motivated by companies as well. So it was like the East India Company wanted all the, you know, the trading ports in China. Well, there was all sorts of like produce companies that wanted the rights to the sugar cane, that they were getting like bottom of the barrel prices because they're importing it from these people who were basically slaves in Cuba and that part of the world, where they would do sugar cane and, you know, bananas and all these other things. And then we would buy them up at, you know, pennies on the dollar and sell them at full price in America. And it was right there and it was easy. So there was like, hey, like this country is going, you know, the wrong way. They're going there, you know, so we need to get it so we can continue to, there's a great podcast about it actually called Blowback, talking about like all of Cuba and Korea too. And but that was really kind of the thing. It was always financially motivated, and these companies were like, look, we're going to get shut out, and it's going to of this market, and we've been paying like nothing for these prices forever. Now we're going to have to pay like full price. I'm like, well, we can't have that. Yeah. So let's invade them. Let's start a war. So it was all, you know, there's always money at the end of this. So it sucks. And that's like the root of all money. You know, they say money's the root of all evil. And there's so many wars, maybe theoretically all of them have been fought about money and resources. It's crazy.
Hey, did anything ever happen with that Pelosi going to Taiwan?
I mean, we didn't go to war, but it ruffled feathers, because it's like, that was like one of those things when China opened back up. We used to just call like officially on the world stage, everybody just referred to Taiwan as like China, because the big China, mainland China, was closed off to the world. They were not like, they're allies with the Soviet Union, of course. They had some trade deals with them, but they were kind of like hostile to each other a little bit, but even though that they were on like technically the same team. But they were, you know, a black hole. Like no one got in, no one went in or out. They had like no technology. They had no cities. It was very like just poor people, agriculture, all this. And they were sorting out their own things for 25 years until they opened back up. And that was, that happened. And now they've taken off as like an economic superpower. I think their GDP is technically higher than ours now. Like they're technically a larger economy. Right. Yeah, I think so. But it's so like we're so reliant upon each other. But no, nothing really happened other than people got pissed off. So, and like I think China like ramped up like their military exercises and did like flyovers and things like that, violating airspace because they're pissed about Nancy Pelosi. But we never like would refer to Taiwan as anything except for China. And then when they rechanged that policy, China's like, no, we want to be China. They're something else. So now they're like it's like the People's Republic of China. And I can't remember what Taiwan like calls themselves official, but it's something else of China. And it's like that has been a hot button thing like forever. And we've always had Taiwan's back because Mao like had intentions and they did bombings of Taiwan in the 50s. And Truman came in and was like, look, like you just saw how we got involved with Korea. They put their Navy like in that basically was like, we're the buffer zone. And if you guys tried to invade, because they had way more people than Taiwan. So we gave Taiwan airplanes, we gave them all sorts of shit, and then we brought our Navy. So it's like if you're planning an invasion of Taiwan, I think this was like 1952, we're going to fight you. And then it was like they still did some bombings. And then Truman was like, we will nuke you, Mao. We'll nuke you if you try to invade Taiwan. So he's like, all right, we won't. And then they just closed off relations with America entirely for 25 years. Okay. So that's how that went down. But it is like a fascinating part of the world because China, if you go like we're still a new country. I feel like every other country in the world has experienced something where like their government topples. Like if you're a Russian, you've seen you were born, if you're our age, you were born in the Soviet Union, your entire government collapsed. Like England's gone through it in their history. France has gone through coups in their country. Like everybody's kind of gone through that. And they're like more aware of it and more afraid of it, I think, than we are. Because we've just never, like we had the Civil War, but like our government won. So we never really experienced that. But I think other countries are like kind of hyper aware of that. That's why you see China, Germany, certainly, Japan, certainly, China, certainly, because they had all these different dynasties. And then they had their own civil war then they were conquered by Japan. So everybody's kind of always been conquered or have their governments collapse. Like look at South America. That's happened like 1,000 times. All of those countries. Mexico's had like 100 presidents since they've become a country. And none of them really leave like waving goodbye to their adoring people. It's like assassinated, removed from office, coup d'etat, all that stuff. So it's like we're kind of in a position where we just don't think that can happen when it happens to like literally every other country throughout time. So we'll see. Might be another one of those things. Fourth season, fourth turning, all that kind of stuff.
It's interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. All right, Chief. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. That's it for today. We will be back tomorrow. We will see you then. Go watch Surviving Barstool. It's on the Barstool Sports.
How many more
YouTube.
Episodes?
It's every day this week.
Okay.
I think they air at 6 p.m. Central. So
4 more.
Yes.
Okay.
Finale's on Thursday.
Thursday night. Okay.
All right.
And it's football season.
Then it's football season. Yep.
Head down.
All right, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.